Hello, I'm old Mr. Kent on my morning e-trike ride. I'm 82 years old, and this is February. I never can remember for sure, but I think it's the 26th or the 27th of February, and it's not really important. But we're getting close to March, and March is kind of halfway between winter and summer, as you know. And so, anyway, I decided a while back that I would tell stories about my neighbors. And of course, in the process of telling stories about my neighbors, I end up telling stories about me, which I guess that's all right. So anyway, my last story was where we lived in Cheyenne, Wyoming, when I was just a little tiny guy. And then my folks moved, when I was about 4 years old, my folks moved to a place 6 miles east of Renton, Washington, which is southeast of Seattle, Washington a ways. And it was a wooded, hilly area. And the house wasn't anything fancy, but it was just what they needed. And so it was, not a fancy house for sure. But we lived next to a house which was owned by some people. And they seemed like old people to me, but I'm sure they weren't. Because I was probably 4 or 5 years old when we moved in there. Most likely 4. And so they seemed like old people to me, but I know they weren't. And their name was Love, Mr. and Mrs. Love. And believe it or not, they owned a filling station, and it wasn't very close to where we lived, as we went and visited it one time. And that was a long time ago. And I just always kind of wondered after I saw the Love's filling stations, that they have now, the big fancy ones. I just wonder if that was a carry on from their filling station. Hard to know for sure. But anyway, they did that. And they also raised chinchillas. And chinchillas are long, skinny, furry little animals. And they used those to make fur coats. And so I imagine that they made pretty good money. I don't know much because I didn't pay much attention to anything like that back then. But anyway, so those were our neighbors, and they were really nice folks. I know I must have hung around in their house a lot. They must have really thought I was special, spoiled me, and things like that. So anyway, I got a few stories to tell about them. For one thing, I was in their living room twice. I remember being in their living room twice. The first time that I'll just say, the first story I'll tell about that is they had a chinchilla that was sick. And so it was laying on the couch. And my dad worked for United Airlines. And so however he managed it, he jumped in the car and took me with him. And we went to Boeing Field, which is where he worked. And he managed to get a hold of a small oxygen bottle and bring it home and make a little oxygen mask to try to keep the little chinchilla alive and well. But the only thing is that it didn't help, and the chinchilla died anyway. So I remember that was in their living room doing that. And I don't know who this guy is that's going along really slow there. Good morning. Anyway, so that was the one time. The other time I remember being in their living room was it was a little downhill slope from our house to their house. Remember, this is a wooded area. And it was just a little narrow path that you went down to get from our house to their house. And I had a tricycle. This was when I was pretty young because I had a tricycle, didn't have a bicycle yet. And so I was going down to see them on my tricycle. And it seems like it wasn't real sunny and it wasn't real dark. So that's all I remember. So I'm going down this hill and I took my feet off the pedals and just coasted really fast. Well, I've told this story before, and I just remember that. They had a patio that came out from their kitchen door, and it was a nice big patio. I don't know how big it was, but anyway, I remember they had a patio, and so I'm going to go make a right turn here and get onto a road off of the canal road, and go along here. All right, now, so I came zipping down that road, and I remember the last thing I saw was that brick patio, which didn't have anything. It was like just here's the ground, there's the patio. And so my front wheel of my trike hit that. The next thing I remember is waking up on their couch in their living room. So I must have knocked myself out. Well, I probably went head first over the handlebars. I got a bug on my glasses. Just a second here. He just flew away. All right, that was nice. Anyway, so that's one thing I remember. And by the way, I'll just go ahead and tell you the rest of my knockouts. So that was the first time I got knocked out. The second time I got knocked out, I've told this story before, is when I learned how to ride a bicycle. I had just learned how, and I wanted to go with my sister. She was going to go. We had a road in front of our house, little two-lane road that went up and down to through the towards east and west. And she was going to go see her girlfriend that lived maybe half a mile away or so, maybe a mile away. And so she was going to go see her girlfriend. And I wanted to go along, and she didn't want me to go along. But so I followed her on my trike or on my bike. And I had just learned how to ride. So, we'd go down a hill and up a hill, down a hill and up a hill. And we got to this hill, which was pretty steep, and she could ride up it, but I couldn't. So I had to push my bike. So I got off my bike, and I'm pushing it up the hill and up the hill. And as I get to the top, it was kind of level. And as I get to the top, she's just going over the other side, and she won't wait for me. So I got really mad, lost my temper, turned around, and went down that hill back home just as fast as I could. And that's all I remember, because next thing I remember, I'm laying on my mom's lap, and we're driving, my dad's driving us into town to a clinic, because I crashed, knocked myself out. And that's the second time I knocked myself out. Third time I knocked myself out was when a guy turned in front of me riding my Harley going 50 miles an hour, and I tumbled down the road. Fortunately, I had a helmet on. Wasn't required back then, but went head first into a power pole, and I remember seeing sky, ground. Next thing I remember is my face is laying on the ground looking straight at a whole bunch of little rocks. So anyway, the 3 times that I've been knocked out cold have been on 2 or 3 wheels, like right now, 3 wheels. And there's some more of my friends. Okay, so anyway, those are some things I remember about the love people, the loves, and that's not all though, because in 1949 they bought a brand new car. I got a picture off the internet. It was a 1949 Hudson. They don't make Hudsons anymore, but they did back then, and boy, it was a super nice car. And my folks were planning a vacation, and they were planning to go, I guess they wanted to go to the Olympic Hot Springs, which back then, it's not, Olympic Hot Springs isn't there anymore, like it was, but it was on, I guess they call it the Salduck River, and it came down the hill out of the mountains in the Olympic Peninsula, and it came down the hill, and they had a water wheel, and that drove a DC generator, and that supplied all the electricity for their little resort. And then they had a big swimming pool, and it was heat. It was automatically it was hot springs water, and that's where I actually learned to swim. We went up there. Well, my folks borrowed that car, and we went up there and we rented. I think we had to rent 2 cabins because we had my grandma, my Aunt Janice, and my Aunt Chloe with us, and I think we only had 3 kids back then. I don't think my little brother had been born yet. So anyway, we went up there, and I suppose they were there for 2 or 3 days, and then we went back several times. We went back after that, because what happened was my dad, we had a 1937 Plymouth that was falling apart. For example, in order to hold the driver's side window up, my dad, I'll just stop here. My dad pulled it up as far as he could, and then took a screwdriver and jammed it down besides the window, and that held the window up. Because the roller up and downer wouldn't work. And so that was what we had. And so after we got back from borrowing that Hudson, he went down and bought a 1950 Nash Ambassador, which I've already put a picture of up. I think in my last video. Was it my last video? Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's what it looked like. It's the same color and everything as that picture which I got off of the internet. So anyway, so that encouraged them to get that. And then, of course, when we went up to the hot springs, they liked it so well that we went up there several times after that, and with our own car. And then just to move way ahead, eventually, after we moved away from that spot, moved into town, I got into Boy Scouts and went camping and stuff. And this one time, they bought a tent, an umbrella tent, and they wanted me to set it up because I was into camping and everything. So I took it out in the backyard, and I carefully unpacked everything. It had never been set up before. I put everything like I should have, and I had everything out where it should be, and I had to carry that center pole in. And would you believe, as I was carrying it through the door, that little prong at the top caught on the mosquito netting, ripped a big hole in it. My parents, once again, were not too happy with me. So anyway, so that was our neighbors that, I got one more story about our neighbors. And, I'm not going to say bad things about my mom. I can't, because I have a lot of respect for my parents, and they raised me, and must have been quite a headache, especially since I got sick and took out all their savings and everything. But it was kind of a crazy thing. I must have spent a lot of time with the Love people, because it was nighttime and I was down at their house, and this was before cell phones and everything. So their phone rang, and it was my mom, and she said, I wasn't on the phone. This is what they said. Send him home quickly, because there's reports of a cougar in the area. In other words, let's see if we can get rid of him quickly. I don't know, but so I got a car coming here. So they told me I had to run home, run up that path and across our yard and in the back door of our house, which didn't take too long, but I was just glad I didn't get chewed up by a cougar. So anyway, that's That's the story of neighbors number 2, I guess you could say. And so if that's if that's interesting, fine. I'm sorry to worry you. Now the next neighbor is when we move into downtown Seattle, and we got a lot more excitement for young kids like me when I was in junior high and even all the way up to high school. So then I'll have more information about my neighbors. That was more fun for me, more exciting for me. And I'm sure this was all exciting for you. Well, I'm running out of stories. What else can I say? So I want to thank you for watching my video, and God bless.